I found the worst episode from every Star Wars TV show based on the ratings and how entertaining they are. And I'm gonna go through them all in this video, with the episodes getting worse as the video goes on. Trust me, some of these are bad. Let's start off with everyone's favorite Star Wars show, The Clone Wars. Now, most of you would probably say that the worst episode is something from the Martez sisters arc in season 7, but that's too easy of a pick. Let's do right by The Clone Wars and pick something from the original 6 seasons. The bad episodes all have one thing in common. Either they're focused on the droids or Jar Jar, but I had to go with season 4, episode 5, Mercy Mission. It's this weird story following C-3PO and R2-D2 on a mission to a planet that's been wrecked by earthquakes. The people that live on the planet are weird enough by themselves, but it turns out there's other people living deep underground that are causing the earthquakes. Some of them are these super odd fairy people, and the others are talking trees. I wish I was making this up. So in the middle of all of this, you have R2 and 3PO trying to make peace in this underground war, and they do it by solving this riddle from the fairies. Don't ask me why. It's a weird story with un-Star Wars-like characters, and it's just a kiddie filler episode on top of that. If you have a different choice for the worst episode, definitely let me know down below. Andor's worst episode is also filler, but it's actually not bad. Most of you probably don't remember season 1 of Andor at this point, but I think the worst episode is episode 2. That would be me. In the context of the show, this episode was kind of boring because there's just a lot of talking and plot development. It's not until later that you come to appreciate what this episode sets up. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those idiots that can't watch a Star Wars episode that doesn't have a battle or lightsabers. Andor just has so many episodes that do the slow parts well that this one comes out to being the worst. Star Wars Rebels, surprisingly, does have a standout worst episode. That's season 3, episode 8, Iron Squadron. The premise is that the Ghost crew runs into a group of kids who are trying to be their own rebel cell, just like the Ghost crew was in the past. Except, naturally, the kids are insanely annoying and stupid. So for the whole episode, you have to put up with hearing them talk and act like idiots. And it gets especially hard to watch when one of the kids thinks he can take on an Imperial cruiser head on, and inevitably he gets captured. So the Ghost crew then has to risk their lives to save this guy, who proceeds to learn absolutely nothing from his dumb decision, which is just the icing on the cake for this episode. And it basically ends up being a filler episode because nothing comes out of this. I know Rebels has some other low points, but to me, this one is far and away the worst. The low point of The Mandalorian is really just all of season 3. It just doesn't hold up compared to the first 2 seasons. So it makes sense that the worst episode would be from season 3. Specifically, I think episode 3, Guns for Hire, is the worst. You might remember this episode because of Jack Black and Lizzo's cameos. For me, they're just too famous and recognizable to include in Star Wars. It felt like every time I saw them, I was pulled out of the episode, because you just can't escape the fact that, like, that's Jack Black right there. Because of that, I'm not a big fan of the scenes they're in. But that's not the only reason I chose this episode. The world that they're from is weird in itself. It feels like something straight out of Alice in Wonderland. It's just a goofy setting that doesn't mesh well with the side plot of Bo-Katan fighting to be the rightful leader of Mandalore, which is happening during all of this. There's also yet another subplot going on, which is some sort of detective side quest that doesn't really amount to anything. Basically, a lot is going on with not a whole lot of payoff. Believe it or not, The Bad Batch has some of the same problems. If there's one thing I've noticed with this show, it's that it has quite a few episodes that really serve no purpose in the greater story. There are way too many side missions that happen for no good reason. To be honest though, I don't remember this show as well as I should, so I went with the reviews to choose which episode was the worst. And that episode is season 2, episode 5, Entombed. The premise is that the Bad Batch join up with a pirate who has a map to some ancient treasure. The whole story is a callback to Indiana Jones, for whatever that's worth. Once they steal the treasure though, this massive machine wakes up to defend it, and after a bunch of fighting, they just realize they have to put the treasure back. So not only is this side mission pointless, but they don't even get what they came for. If you're a fan of The Bad Batch, I guess you can justify sitting down and watching this. But I wouldn't willingly sit down for 30 minutes to watch this ever again. Sometimes I feel that way about the Tales shows, but at least they're short, and generally the stories are entertaining. Well, most of the time. Possibly the most boring piece of Star Wars content I've ever watched was Tales of the Jedi Episode 1, Life and Death. This episode was a completely unnecessary backstory to Ahsoka's childhood. For starters, Ahsoka is just a baby in this episode, so it's not even about her. Instead, we follow her mom as she takes Ahsoka out into the forest to explore. They encounter this big saber-toothed tiger who then steals Ahsoka from her mom. The mom is freaking out over this, but Ahsoka doesn't mind being with this creature that could kill her in an instant. She randomly taps into the Force for the first time and uses it to calm the tiger. That's cool and all, but the craziest part is that she rides the tiger all the way back to her village. Of course, everybody can't believe it, and they realize Ahsoka's clearly Jedi material. It's just a really unnecessary story that doesn't do anything or add to Ahsoka's story. With the exception of Anakin, really nobody cares what Jedi did in their childhoods. That period of their life might as well have never happened. And it's just preposterous that Ahsoka would use the Force in this capacity so early on. You could probably tell I was fed up by the time I mentioned that she rode the tiger into the village like it was a victory parade, because I was. The next Tales series is Tales of the Empire. For this one, Episode 3, The Path of Hate, is the worst one for sure. It's the conclusion of Morgan Elsbeth's arc, which is just an uninteresting character to follow to begin with. The first episode was cool because we got to see more of Grievous destroying the Night Sisters. Episode 2 had an appearance from Thrawn at least, but Episode 3 had Morgan Elsbeth more or less standing on her own, and that's just not entertaining. Some of you might hate the Barriss arc more, but I found that arc pretty fun to watch even with the Darth Vader clickbait. At least there was a new, interesting story being told there. Anyway, the episode follows Morgan as the ruler of the planet Corvus, just as we see her in The Mandalorian Season 2. This cliché moment happens as the New Republic arrives and asks her to relinquish her rule. In a moment of hatred, she has all of the New Republic troops killed. Her whole character arc isn't convincing. It's like we're supposed to feel bad for her after Dathomir's destroyed, but then she becomes this basic character that only cares about revenge and dishing out pain. Like, girl, it's been almost 30 years since that happened, and now you're just a sucky ruler. Admit it, your life has been completely useless. I really don't think we needed all of that backstory to understand Morgan Elsbeth as she is in The Mandalorian. Just one episode probably would have been enough. The last Tales show we have so far is Tales of the Underworld. Both arcs were very predictable and just mid overall. They played it so safe with the Cad Bane story that there's not anything bad I can say about it. The worst episode is probably One Warrior to Another, the end of the Ventress arc. Ventress and the kid Jedi just randomly come upon this house in the middle of the desert. It's just an old guy and his daughter living alone. What really surprised me was that the man was actually a veteran of the Clone Wars, and he fought for the Separatists. I never really considered that it wasn't only droids out there fighting the clones. Unfortunately, this episode doesn't really explore this at all. Instead, Ventress is supposed to solve the old man's beef for him. Some random local aliens have been stealing his water. These raiders are supposed to be all big and bad, but of course, they really aren't that bad. They're just misunderstood. It's actually the old man who's been stealing from them the whole time. Basically, the idea is that Ventress is coming closer to being a Jedi by using her diplomacy skills or something. And then they messed up the ending after all that. Instead of getting to see Ventress see Quinlan Vos from far away and truly feel the weight of not being able to be with him, she just lets her Jedi friend walk away, and Ventress goes away into the desert. It's not a terrible ending, but it definitely could have been better or more emotional. It's not just endings that can fall flat. A lot of times, the middle of a series can really suck because it just doesn't have any momentum. That's what happened with the Ahsoka show in Episode 3. For one thing, Episode 3 is just over 30 minutes long. When it dropped, I remember feeling like it was inconsistent with what we'd gotten from the first 2 episodes. But oh, Master Eli, there's a massive space battle that takes up most of this episode. Surely it can't be that bad. Okay, well, that space battle ends up being totally illogical in almost every way. Ahsoka gets out of her ship in a spacesuit to draw fire from the enemy. Physics cease to exist for this as well. Ships just come to a dead stop after being hit. And naturally, the enemies might as well be clankers. They're just so insanely stupid, and they help Ahsoka maintain her plot armor perfectly. It's one of those battles that's great to watch if you don't notice any of the details. Kind of like the lightsaber duel on Snoke's ship in The Last Jedi, if you know what I mean. Anyway, this space battle would be fun to watch if it didn't keep getting interrupted by a useless meeting between Hera and some New Republic senators. A whole side plot that didn't matter in the slightest. And worst of all, this episode did almost nothing to progress the story. It just went over old themes and reminded us all that Sabine is worthy to be a Padawan, in case you weren't convinced from the previous episodes. At least there is action and some stuff going on here though. Skeleton Crew completely lost its momentum in episode 4 because everyone just walks around the whole time. Now I will say, this episode does this for the sake of character development, but the entire story and action doesn't have to stop just so we can understand the kids better. If you remember, this series started out with the kids leaving the suburbs planet, and from that point on they've been having crazy adventures, getting shot at by X-Wings and doing all of the bucket list Star Wars stuff. But now they want to go home. So they land on a planet that they think is theirs, but it's a completely different place with a similar name. It looks a lot like their home, but past wars have completely changed the landscape. They meet some locals and even some kids who tell the crew their own personal experiences on their world. The point is that the kids come to understand how life can be so different from theirs, even in a place that's not far from home that could have been just like their planet. Not a bad idea in and of itself, but I think it could have been done in a more entertaining way. And with the shorter runtime of the episode, I was left kinda unsatisfied after finishing it. If I'm talking about being unsatisfied though, I'd be wrong if I didn't mention the Book of Boba Fett. To be honest, I'm not a fan of this show in the slightest, especially episode 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. The streets of Mos Espa have been terrorized by what are described as these big bad humans with cybernetic enhancements. Little did we know it was just the spy kids the whole time. I can't take these guys seriously even if I wanted to. Not only do they look incredibly goofy, but they add insult to injury by riding these bright colored Vespas that just look like scooters. It doesn't look like it should ever fit in on Tatooine at all, let alone Star Wars. But the brand new Boba Fett takes one look at these guys and is like, I could use their help. So they band together to pull up on the mayor of Mos Espa to confront him. Very intimidating, guys. A high-speed chase ensues throughout Mos Espa, where the kids attempt to destroy absolutely everything in their way, and the dude they're chasing crashes in quite literally the saddest way possible. I can't even hate on him because he just sucks that bad. The one high point of this episode was the introduction of the bounty hunter Kersantin, but other than that, everything that happens just pisses me off so much. Kinda like Kenobi episode 4, the prison break episode. This is the episode where Obi-Wan has to rescue Leia from Fortress Inquisitorius. Even if the Clone Wars hero was in his prime, this would have been a tough assignment. But from the start, this mission was super easy. Kenobi gets in through an underwater entrance, no problem. The funniest part to me is that Obi-Wan infiltrated the base in almost the exact same way Cal did in Jedi Fallen Order, except Fallen Order likely happened right before the events of this show. So you're telling me that Darth Vader, the Inquisitors, or even some random officer never thought to beef up the security? Like, I wonder how people are going to sneak into our base in the middle of the ocean. Probably going to be underwater, just a random guess. Meanwhile, Reva and the Imperials are having no luck interrogating 4-year-old Leia. I'm sorry, but if you can't even intimidate a toddler, it might be time to reconsider your game plan. Obi-Wan easily makes his way through the maze of the base while only encountering a couple of stormtroopers along the way. He gets straight to the torture room and frees Leia just in time. With the base on lockdown, Obi-Wan and Leia make a run for it. Obi-Wan once again follows in Cal's footsteps and deflects some blaster shots into the glass tunnel, causing it to collapse and drown the stormtroopers while they escape to the other side of a blast door. Once again, I have to imagine that glass would be stronger than that, just by having to withstand the pressure of all of that water. It definitely should have been reinforced after Cal blasted it the first time. But Obi-Wan continues to escape while just hiding Leia inside of his trench coat somehow. They finally run out of luck at the hangar, where they're surrounded by tons of stormtroopers, purge troopers, and Reva. And that's when the airspeeders arrive. I just want to say, it looks incredibly unrealistic when they fly in. There's no way they had space to turn around past this point. But this is the worst part right here. Obi-Wan and Leia just run wild through the crowd of stormtroopers and barely even get shot at. The troopers' reaction times are just absurdly bad, even for Imperials. Like, Obi-Wan and his partner will wildly shoot at 3 guys and still have time to turn around and shoot some more before the stormtroopers are even ready. Then they hop on the airspeeder and escape. The 5th brother comes in right at the end and throws a battery to destroy one airspeeder, which begs a question as to why Reva didn't do that from the start. But I'm done trying to explain this episode. It's just trash. And it has a laughable runtime of just over 30 minutes to top it off. Yet another reason why Kenobi is my least favorite Star Wars show. I'm done with that rant though. Let's talk about 2 more shows before we finish with the absolute worst. And if you're enjoying this video so far, then definitely be sure to leave a like. I make tons of Star Wars videos just like this one, so you might want to subscribe as well. Next is Star Wars Visions, the anime Star Wars show. Most of this show is really solid, and that's coming from someone who doesn't watch anime at all. But the worst rated episode is by far episode 2. Tatooine Rhapsody, and it's not hard to see why. The episode follows a Padawan who joins a band on Tatooine after Order 66. The problem is that this Padawan, whose name is Jay, is being hunted by Boba Fett. So the whole episode is basically the band being on the run while trying to figure out how to improve their music together. They eventually get Boba off their back by performing in front of Jabba at the end of the episode. The idea is that if Jabba likes their music enough, he'll support them and protect them. Of course, they ball out on the performance, and Jabba absolutely loves it. It's not a terrible episode, but it's way different than all of the other Star Wars Visions episodes, which mostly focus on massive lightsaber duels and crazy scale fights. Finally, there's the worst episode from Star Wars Resistance, which is Season 1, Episode 12. This show is generally directed at kids, and it's pretty consistent at doing its thing. But this one is way lower rated than the rest, and it's easy to see why. The whole episode is about one of the kids finding a weird sea creature and deciding to keep it as a pet. So of course, the monster causes chaos all over the Resistance base. There's really no action in this episode at all, and the whole thing is about the kid learning a lesson. Nothing special. So now all we have left is the single worst episode from a show in Star Wars history. I think you already know what it is. It's the Acolyte Episode 3, Destiny. This is the legendary episode that gave us the song, The Power of Many. Yeah, this is that episode. The introduction of the witches and everything in between was just terrible. I don't know how else to say it. The whole confrontation between the witches and the Jedi feels super contrived, but it helps put Osha at odds with everyone else since she wants to leave and go be a Jedi. So her sister does the only logical thing to keep her around by burning down the whole witch fortress. We get to see a ton of stone burn in seconds, like it was wood. The head witch dies in the dumbest way possible, and Osha and May somehow escape. When I first watched it, I thought it might have had some potential to set up the rest of the show, with the sheer amount of unanswered questions and foreshadowing details there were. But knowing how the show wrapped up makes this episode much worse. The backstory was unnecessary, the writing and the dialogue is trash, and the fire is completely implausible. And it's not even clear if the story is being told inaccurately on purpose from Osha's perspective, which would have been cool. Anyway, which episode is the worst in your opinion? Let me know in the comments.